in other facets of life, I mean, I think that uh, there's a there's a big influence. Another book I read a long time back. I probably read this 15, 16 years ago, called Power versus Force. It's written by a guy named David Hawkins, and he has a kind of a controversial approach. But the thesis of his book is that if I lie to you, and in your conscious state you don't know I'm lying to you, in your subconscious state you do. And for most humans, the pipe between the subconscious and the conscious is mostly clogged, uh, but it's not fully clogged. So what will happen is that if I'm lying to you, uh, you'll get a feeling that you don't have a lot of interest in being around me, but you won't be able to tell why that is. And a good example is like, if you're talking to a used car dealer and he's giving you his pitch on why that Ford Pinto is such a great car, uh, you may not realize or understand what part of what he's telling you is a lie, but you generally get the feeling that you want to get as far away from him as quickly as possible. And that's because you can tell that there's some things that he's saying that are probably not true. Whereas if you're hanging around with the Dalai Lama and he's talking, you probably want to increase that type of interaction as much as you can. And so this the thesis of the book is that basically humans don't particularly care how bad the truth is, but what they care about is that you're telling the truth. So to give you an example, let's say my wife and I are about to go out to see a movie and have dinner and so on. And let's say she gets dressed and she asks me how the dress looks. And let's say I have a perspective that the dress doesn't look that great. And so since I read the book, I changed my answers and I encouraged to try this, Arvind. That when I'm asked by her, how does the dress look or this and that, I give an absolutely candid answer, even though I know that in the near term, it may lead to us missing the movie or the entire date getting cancelled or various other negative effects. But the long term impact of that is that she has a very high degree of trust that when I'm saying something to her, it is the truth. And that long term has huge positive impacts on the relationship. So I would say that in 2008, for example, our funds were down like 67%, and I very candidly communicated with my investors. Obviously, first of all, they got the numbers which showed them what was going on, but I also clearly told them that it wasn't just the financial crisis that was causing these issues. That they were, we took zeros on some investments, and and those zeros were not entirely because there was a financial crisis, though they they were partially because of that, but a lot of it was my own mistakes, and quite frankly, our withdrawals and redemptions were pretty benign at that period, and investors basically had trust. And so I think that it takes a lifetime to build that trust. It takes a lifetime to always say the truth, but I would say that it's a very important thing not to say the small lies, because the small lies add up and they erode trust. So as you go through your life, when you run into situations where you have a choice between truth and diplomacy, you should choose the truth, even if there's near-term pain. And if you repeatedly choose the truth, then long-term, uh, the paybacks are exponential. And to some extent, I think that is exactly what Buffett does. Buffett is all about candor, and he always starts his annual reports with the mistakes and with the bad news, and he always tells his managers, "Give me the bad news first." And I think that's the way you want to live your life is you want to give people the bad news first, and you want to be candid about the bad news.